The following content is brought to you by MYND Initiative Incorporated. The opinions expressed in the following conversation are of the hosts and do not in any way represent the opinions of MYND Initiative as a whole. Some themes in this series may be distressing or triggering for some listeners, and so viewer discretion is advised. If any of the content does trigger uncomfortable feelings or cause distress, we encourage you to reach out to us via our Facebook page or seek further support from beyondblue.org or contact Lifeline on 13 11 14 for 24/7 over-the-phone support. We would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we all stand, and we extend our respect to the elders, both past and present.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Doesn't Mess With Your Mind. I'm your host, Jason, and joining me tonight is Hashida. How are you tonight, Hashida?
Doing great, Jason. How are you?
I am very good. A little bit tongue-tied, so we'll see how we go tonight. We wanted to talk about boundaries tonight and how boundaries work within your mental hygiene. One of the things with boundaries is that feeling of not being able to say what you really feel, or that people are offending you in a way that you might feel is like insensitive, or they might be doing it inadvertently, or they might be doing it advertently and just trying to bully you. So we're going to go through all of those kind of little contexts, how they might work in your personal life or in your work life, or in your family life, and see what we can bring to the subject when we talk about it, and see if we can break down some stigma around it. Hashida, is there anything that you want to add straight up to boundaries?
Maybe I'll categorize them a bit. That's all. I did a bit of a read up today because this has been a topic which has interested me for a while, and I'll get down to it later. But to put it in physical, emotional, and mental boundaries. So this is a group that I found, and I found that it made a lot of sense. You apply it to any phase of your life. It's very, very important to set boundaries. So that's all I have to add to it, Jason. So let me just ask you for a exact definition for what do you mean by a boundary?
Yeah, so I guess in this context, we're talking about being able to be comfortable in a situation. I mean, you talked about the physical boundary, and that would be your personal space. And that's people being in your space, you feeling safe. Someone could be 5 meters away from you, but you don't feel safe. Like the way how they're acting, their intent, all of those kind of things might make you feel very unsafe. Whereas someone could be very close to you, but you feel safe because you trust that person, or you might know that person really well and you love that person and you let them into that really close space around you. So knowing what that feels like and understanding what those senses are within your body and trusting your instincts and everything else, that personal space, that physical boundary. And then you've got mental boundaries. So the way how someone talks to you, the emotions that they display, and the way how they make you feel. Someone might, like, let's say a mother might talk to you in a certain way that makes you feel, it's not antagonistic, but it makes you feel like you're being put down, like you're not good enough or something like that. I mean, we all are aware of our mums going, it's not what you did, I'm just disappointed in you, or something like that. I'm not angry at you, but I'm disappointed in you. You know, that kind of thing where you get that mental kind of anguish. And then you mentioned a third one. I can't remember which one that one was.
So physical, emotional, and mental. Emotional and mental, I feel it's a very thin difference, but there is.
Yeah.
Maybe I can take that one. So emotional is probably how, if you're around people, how their emotions impact you, how you let that impact you. So, without getting into this a whole different thing about being empathetic and empathy and other things, but feeling for people is one thing, and letting that affect you is another thing, be it at work. Of course, in your personal relationships, if it's with your family or close one, how they feel does impact you. But in maybe in a work scenario, you shouldn't let those emotions impact you. And even to the point that if something's there's this thing about, we can maybe touch a little bit about work-life balance. That's something, another thing that I've always very, if it is very important to me. I'm still searching for the balance, but I think all these tie back to work-life balance, because setting very boundaries is very important, specifically now, because we work from home a lot. So it's a very, very thin thing. You don't know when to stop, and you sometimes end up working too many hours. And and this is, again, it'll lead back to something we spoke about in one of our other episodes, burnout. Because we continuously stressed, and we just we don't give our brain any rest. So the last one is the emotional thing, how how others around you, your surrounding, the emotions of people around you could impact you, and how you need to even set down boundaries about that, if it is possible, to the extent possible.
Yeah.
So
I
yeah.
mean, what you're saying there is it's if someone's happy and laughing, it's contagious. It's hard to not be happy and laughing. If someone is panicking around you, it's hard not to feel that panic and start to panic yourself. So I can understand kind of what you're saying. And then you said then about work life kind of thing. If everyone in your workplace is stressed and trying to get stuff done, then it's hard not to take on that emotion and go, okay, all right, everyone's panicking. I need to be doing something or feel like I'm doing something. Otherwise, I'm not really chipping in.
Yes. I mean, the way I've seen it is, we stress ourselves out. Sometimes there is no need to get into that space, but we stress ourselves out. And let me just, let's start with the emotional aspect of things, which is, so somebody, I can just maybe give you a scenario that sometimes impacts me. I try not to, but what is your response to this? For example, right, someone's angry about something, in the sense, not angry with you, but the thing is, it's the person has other issues going on, but his response to something that you asked for is in a very angry tone. For me, those emotions do impact me. I've learned to set that aside, but for that brief point in time, it still does impact you. So what would be your approach in that situation? How, I mean, ideally, we should be able to kind of detach ourselves from that, and you know, but what is your approach? Do you have a method or a go-to way to kind of distract yourself, or not get tied down by what another person is feeling or making you feel?
Yeah.
This is in a work situation. Yeah.
Yeah. I guess I want to preface it by saying this is me, and whoever's watching out there, you will have your own way of dealing with it. Don't think because I'm just about to tell you my method that it's going to instantly work for you. But my method is usually around curiosity. So, why is this person getting angry? Is there anger about what they're saying, or is there anger about something else and it's coming out through what they're doing at the moment? And that can happen a lot in workplaces. There's just simple frustration, and they're not achieving what they want to achieve, or they put personal pressures on themselves. And then they look to blame others when they can't make that progress that they've put on themselves. So for me, when someone is angry, I'm very curious about what those root causes are, because that's going to drive where they're going to go next. Even if they're angry at a certain person for not doing a certain task or whatever else, they're not going to go and pick on someone usually, if there is an inner self-doubt that they were actually the one to blame. But then you can get some people who are just a little bit, let's say, over the top and they will blame that person and stuff like that. And then you end up in that kind of toxic workplace. So you do have to watch that kind of stuff. But it is important to be curious about what's going on. And the curiosity actually, when you're curious, it takes away a lot of other emotions because you're not focused on yourself and what you're feeling. You're focusing on what the other person is doing and why they're doing it. So you kind of, when you're curious, you're looking at like a bee or a bird flying around a tree. When you're looking at something in flying around a tree in nature, you're not feeling anger or happiness or anything like that. You're just more like, huh, okay, what's going on here? And that's just how I deal with it. In a situation where there's total panic, I've been in that kind of situation before, and it is hard to get yourself out of it. But you just need to kind of recognize it and sit with that emotion and go, okay, I am panicking. I know why I'm panicking. Why am I panicking? How is it going to help? How can I use this emotion to help? Or is it just a hindrance at the moment? Do I need to move myself out of this situation? But yeah, a lot going on there. Anyway, I'll let you just dissect.
No, I just want to pick on the last thing you said, right? Taking a step back and being patient and not reacting, even if you're panicking, just trying to understand what is driving that emotion. I think it helps. I mean, it happens to me quite a bit that sometimes I'm stressed out, I have anxiety, and I don't know what's going on, and I feel low, and a bunch of physical things as well. And then it continues for a couple of days, and then I realize it's not the situation that's causing the problem. I'm not reacting to any stimuli right there. It's something underlying that is causing me to react this way. And it's always helped me to pause and sometimes talking helps for me, or sometimes just writing down, jotting down things, looking for patterns. If something's triggered it along the way, that's helped too. That's when it stems from a personal side of things. When it comes to people affecting you, one of the ways is definitely if you're in a good space. That's my take on it. If I'm in a good space, I just cannot be curious and offer any good sort of support to the other person. But if I'm in a good space or a relatively good space, I would suggest yes that I'd like your approach to ask the person what they're going through, if they're willing to tell you that, or even direct them to somebody who can speak with them. If they're not comfortable talking to you, direct them to someone whom they can speak with. But yeah, I love that approach. I definitely do love that approach. But then bringing us again, we kind of diverted a bit with approaches there. But getting back to the topic we're talking about today, so boundaries, right?
Yeah.
We spoke about what these could do and what it is. How do we set boundaries in the first place? So um, since we spoke a bit about emotional boundaries here, how do we set the physical boundary, and what is a physical boundary?
Yeah, I guess a physical boundary, as I said before, was what you feel safe when you're around a person or in a situation. Sometimes it's hard to have a physical boundary. Like if you're going on a train and the train is packed, I mean, sometimes you don't have a choice. It's either miss the train or get on with everyone else. And that's kind of hard in a COVID world and everything else. But hey, if you don't get on that train, you don't go to work and you don't get to make money, or you don't get to see your football match that you've paid money for tickets on and stuff like that. So it's about recognizing what that physical boundary is about and how you can manage it. Like I'm not going to sit here and say, hey, you have a lot of anxiety about being around a lot of people. Just get over it and get on the train. It's going to be different for everyone, and you are who you are. So I'm not going to say that there's a way out there to fix it because it may not be fixable. So it's just you recognizing who you are and working to your strengths. and understanding and recognizing those boundaries and how to address it. When someone comes up to you and you meet them for the first time, just set that standard straight up. Just say, hey, nice to meet you. Um, I'm not really a handshake kind of person, or I'm not really a person that likes to stand front on. I don't like that kind of eye contact kind of thing. It makes me nervous. How about we sit down to the side and have a coffee or something like that? Um, it's just about being upfront, or if you are really nervous in that situation, maybe have someone there that you trust. So if you're doing a job interview, just say to the person, hey, I'm really nervous in job interviews. I like it if I have someone there that can support me. Do you mind if I bring someone along that can support me? They won't be answering the questions or anything for me, but um, while they're there, I know I feel supported. And if they see me kind of going off the rails or anything like that, they can let you know that I need a break and have a break, and we can continue later.
Yeah, that
All of
is.
those kind of things.
Yes, that works. I mean, like an interpreter,
Yeah.
interpreter of, uh, emotions out there. That's one thing. But of course, with the, public transport, you could consider getting onto it in an off-peak hour if that's an option. With all this hybrid working and other things, that's an option now. Or just, I tend to watch for some of the compartments are not don't tend to not get so busy as the other ones, so maybe get into that one. So there's always a way you can work through things. And like you said, right, if you're not comfortable with a handshake or maybe a hug, then just tell it out to people. This is your boundary, do not cross that. Again, coming to relationships also, it is the same thing, right? Again, I mean, there are things you can say, and it's also very delicate. So we also need to understand that we may have boundaries, but there are some things that you can compromise a bit on, but there are some things which you may not be able to compromise on. And like you said, being upfront really helps. Like, be honest with that person as to, you can do it two ways. You can either give excuses and try to wriggle out of a situation, or be upfront and honest about what is driving, you're not wanting to do something. So that, I think that always honesty works better than giving excuses.
Yeah.
And the other thing I wanted to touch on is saying no, and this goes across all three, all three boundaries. Saying no. A lot of people, and including myself, we struggle with saying no, and sometimes it is a no, and we have to make sure it is no. So I'm going to put you on a spot there and say, ask you, Jason. So, in a particular situation, maybe at work, what is the best way to say no to something? You know that you have these many things that you have to do, and someone's giving you something that's maybe a high priority thing. So, in that situation, what is your approach to saying no there?
Um, it used to be like asking, like, what is the priority at the moment? How can I help out in this situation? I've got X amount of other things to do or something like that. But these days, I just say no. I just say, right now, I'm busy with something. And I'll tell them what it is, but um, I'll say, it's going to take me this amount of time. I will come and see you when I'm finished, and we will go over what it is that you need, and I will see how I can help you. Um, because if I'm in the middle of something, I don't want to be dropping it and going on to a different task. For me, once I start something, I want to complete it. And even if something comes along that is a higher priority, um, I'm going to be still focused on what I was doing, or I'm not going to get that chance to finish what I was doing. And that would have been important anyway. So I see that completing that original task and slotting that one into the next available free spot is the best way of doing it, and not just dropping what I'm doing, because I find that leads to a bad kind of headspace, because then you don't actually get to celebrate you finishing what you're doing. You're kind of firefighting all the time, and then you get to the end of the day and you're exhausted, and you reflect on, what did I do today? I don't actually know because I was just doing stuff. Whereas if you actually set that boundary of, hey, no, I'm doing something at the moment, I need to complete this, I will slot you in at the next free point. When I complete that particular task, I know that someone tried to interrupt me at that point in time. I knew it was important and I finished what I wanted to do. And then I know at the end of the day that I did what I set out to complete. And that's important for my own self esteem, because I need to complete what I wanted to do in that day. Otherwise, I went to work and I did everything for everyone else. And that is not how I want to live my workday.
Absolutely. I'll just add that, like you said, you're going to get to it. If you can give a, kind of a time commitment, saying that, this is approximately when I can get to what you want me to do, to your task. I think majority of folks would accept that. Beyond that, there's always other mechanisms. Just escalate to your manager or your manager, probably, to maybe they have a better view of which task is more important, if it is, if it's possible there.
Yeah.
While you were talking about that, I was just thinking about the other things, with the modern day, the way we work, we've got email, and then we got probably calls running, and then we also got something called instant messaging.
Yeah.
How do you manage that? And sometimes it's what happens is people send messages, and then there are the odd or one or two people who might just directly call on instant messenger. But what this does to you is it takes focus away from what you're doing. So,
Yes, it does
I
take
mean,
focus away from what I'm doing. Generally, I will turn it all off. If it's an important task to me and I know that I need to do it, I will turn off email. I will turn off instant messaging. I will put earphones in my ears and I will work to get whatever it is that I need to get done, so that way I can concentrate and give full attention to it. But that's my particular workplace. I don't want to cast aspersions that someone else can just turn off their world, and just do what they need to do. If you're an Uber driver, just turning off to everyone else and focusing on what you want to do is probably not going to get you customers or get you a bad review or something like that. So, don't walk in my shoes, walk in your own shoes to the best of your abilities. But yeah, that is what I do. And that's what I've found over time works for me. I've found, as I said, like dropping tasks halfway or starting something and then getting distracted by something else and then getting distracted by something else led to a lot of frustration and not a feeling of accomplishment. And I found that for my own mental hygiene, that feeling of accomplishment is very important. And yeah, I'm just through time, energy, through trial and error. That's what I know works for me. And everyone out there, you need to find what works for you. Probably the same kind of thing. Like we're talking a lot about workplaces at the moment, but family can be like that as well. Like they will be like, they'll put their energy onto you, like, oh, it's your turn to do Christmas this year. You should be doing this and everything else. And sometimes you've got to just set that boundary. It's like, no, maybe next year. I just can't do it this year because I've got this and this and this on. Yeah, and understanding why they want you to do Christmas and everything else and why you can't do it is important, because the last thing you want to do is try to take on both and feel frustrated that you haven't accomplished both. You've got to work in with what is going on in your own life. And yeah, maybe you don't even do Christmas that year. You just go, look, let's go to a restaurant. I've had enough.
yeah. You actually brought in something like a physical boundary to, headphones are a physical boundary.
Yeah.
Just laid out a physical boundary to do away with the other mental distractions. Yeah, personally, I like that too because a lot of the time people do get the idea that you're working on something critical and you get the space and time and the focus, the right amount of focus to complete that task. Um, a feeling of accomplishment is very important in everything we do, be it work or on the personal front. We have our own goals and we want to be in a certain place. And for all these things, it's very important that we are in a good mental space. There are established boundaries, and what these boundaries do is it's also, for me, space for myself is very important. And the boundaries ensure that you have some time for yourself, you sit and contemplate about things, or generally just to relax and do nothing, wind down, all these things, you get some space as well. So it's very, when you establish boundaries, and this thing between work and our personal life, it gets slimmer and slimmer as we continue to work from home. But then I think we should maybe discuss tips about how to manage that, how to shut off at a certain time. And especially because we've got email running on our phones. Even if you shut down the computer, you hear it go ting, and then there's a message, and you tend to respond to that. So that's, I think, we need to practice saying no, and even saying no to that message. Maybe you can set off snooze notifications or something of that sort, or just office space, establish an office space. Work gets done in the office space. Don't carry the phone to the bed and start working.
Yeah. For me,
So anyway.
it's leave things in their bags. So if I work from home, I will bring back my laptop bag and the phone and everything else. My job at the moment has a work phone, but as soon as I've finished for the day, I actually pick up the laptop and I pick up the phone and I put them in the bag, and they can make all the noise they want all night, but I'm not going near that bag because I've finished work for the day. And I think that as a physical boundary is very important, because you do need to understand how to switch off.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think
That's
amongst all these things, if you have to pick one thing that you find very a bit difficult to do, which one would you pick? I mean,
uh,
let me saying no, establishing physical boundaries, and separating your emotional, I mean, how you feel emotionally from your work, or vice versa. So, which one do you struggle with anything, or
yeah.
you?
My one would be like the wanting to please people. So, which can create issues with boundaries in itself, because sometimes you will overcommit,
Yes.
overpromise that you can do stuff that you think that you can do, but when you actually look into the task, it's way bigger than you thought. And then you've kind of got that shame feeling of, oh man, I said I could do this. Now I've got to go back and say that I actually can't. So, um, that's probably one of the big things that I've established boundaries around. And that comes with like when you work from home, putting stuff in the bag and everything else, because at the end of the day, I'm only one person. Um, so if I say that I'm going to do something now, I just say, look, I'm going to look into this. I'm not going to promise you a solution. I'm just going to look into it and see how big the problem is. And I will come back to you and tell you how big the problem is, and I will give you options for solutions. That doesn't commit me to actually giving a solution or finding the answer to the problem. It more gives back to the business. Okay, you've now got these options. I've dug this deep. This is what's happening. These are the options. What do you want to do? And that takes the commitment off of me, because usually those options come with someone else is going to do the work, hire a third party, something like that. I've done my job just to find what the total aspect of that problem is. So using my Uber driver drives down the road, gets a flat tire. Okay, your options are, we can call a RACV or RACQ or whatever it is, NRMA. They can come out and change the tire. You can get someone from the office to come out and change the tire, or we can keep driving on a flat tire to a tire place and they can change it. You pick whatever you want to do, because it's your loss in time whatever else. I'm just the driver. I'm not a tire fixer.
Yes, and at the end of the day, it's what works for you. There's
Yeah.
no set rule that, this works for Jason or this works for Harshida. It may not work for both of those things may not work for you, but at the end of the day, I mean, it's what works for you. And also communicating how you feel, and if something's overwhelming you, communication, I think, is also, I don't think we covered this enough, but I
Yeah.
think communicating is also equally important.
Yes.
I
We
think
have
with
to we have to communicate so the other person hears us. A lot of the time we communicate to push our message across, but we don't actually care that the other person is really hearing us. A lot of training in the mental health space is about communication and how we communicate, and then also asking the follow-up questions and reframing and everything else to make sure that a person can respond in a way that indicates to us that they actually understand what we're saying. And I use a lot of that stuff in the workplace, but that's through my training. For other people out there that haven't done that training, it's just about slowing down what you're talking about, so that way you're looking at the cues that a person is actually understanding what you're saying, and they're asking questions back to you that are curious, that it gives you an understanding of that. Okay, they understand what I'm saying. They're asking the right questions. If they're asking all the wrong questions, then they probably don't understand what you're communicating to them. Or if they're not asking you questions at all, they probably don't understand what you're communicating with you, or they don't care, which is another problem in itself. You're talking to the wrong person.
Yeah, communication is a two-way street, cannot be a one-way street.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think this comes with training. It's not something specifically, right. If you're communicating and you have a lot of emotions in play, I'm not sure if everybody listens to that feedback. It may be evident out there, but how much it's the difference between listening and hearing again, right? I don't know if they may hear the feedback, but they're not listening to it, or watering down what you're saying. And maybe it's complicated for the other person. Unless you listen to the feedback, it's not going to happen. But I
Yeah.
think we should leave it at that note for today. This is way more vast than I thought it was, and I think setting boundaries is always going to be. It's not you can set boundaries and sit still. It's going to be different with different people, different situations. I think it's going to be a work in progress.
Yeah, I mean, boundaries are about you. It's not about the other person. So when you meet someone for the first time, don't look at them and go, okay, I'm going to change all of my boundaries for them, because you're instantly doing something different, which is going to change what you need. And boundaries are about what you need. So finding out what you need and putting that on the plate first is very important. And that'll change year after year, day after day. You don't, unless you actually stop and think about what you actually need that day or that particular moment, um, you're running blind. So make
Yeah,
sure
and
you
maybe
actually, when you're in that new situation, you have a quick think about, okay, what do I actually need right now?
yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
I hope that that has been entertaining for everyone tonight and informative. As I said last week, you have to walk in your own shoes. So, Hashida, all of that stuff that I've said tonight, I hope that is information that you can take away and apply in your own life.
Of course, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
I,
going to be.
I look forward to next week when you reply and you tell us all of your tips and tricks, because we didn't really hear from you tonight. You were the question asker.
Yes, I played
Yeah.
a different role today, because I think this is one topic that I've been struggling with. One setting boundaries is something that I've been struggling with, and I can give you more insights on what I found out too. But yeah, that'll have to wait for another day, Jason. But
Okay.
I loved hearing from you, and I'm going to apply some of it for sure.
Awesome. If you have heard something tonight that is triggering, or if it's made you feel upset or anything like that, please make sure that you reach out for help. We've got all of our lifeline numbers and everything else within our post. Special shout out to Christina and Hashida tonight. Thank you for joining us. Thank you, Christina, for giving us feedback. It's always good. Approving all of our YouTube videos and cutting out all the nasty stuff. Thank you very much. And for everyone, we hope to see you for our next episode. Thank you very much. Thank you, Hashida.
Thank you.
Good night, all.